They say New York teaches you to hear the difference between noise and signal. To me, noise is the city's usual soundtrack, a 6 a.m. garbage truck grinding through bags like it eats metal for breakfast, the uptown rumble of the N train under 59th, the hiss of steam through a rusted valve that swears it's fine. Signal is the less dramatic thing that stays, a hum where it shouldn't be, a cable thrumming when the car is supposedly at rest. I make a living chasing signal, long before it becomes a problem with a headline. 45 years old, 26 in Local 1, and you learn to read a building the way a cardiologist reads a heart. It's all timing and tolerances and the kindness of physics if you respect it. After the knee, I stopped running up stairwells 2 steps at a time. November, Lower East Side, a service call on a brownstone where somebody thought machine room meant closet with a sane amount of ventilation. I came down wrong from a ladder, one of those stupid accidents where your foot does what it's done 10,000 times and then decides it doesn't know the choreography. The doctor at NYU Langone said meniscus and rest, and the union rep said take the time, in a voice that meant take the time if you want to have a knee at 60. Cassie said, we'll watch Christmas movies and make soup, a sentence that used to sound like home. When I met her, she was 24 and furious at a temp agency for misspelling her name on a badge. She fixed it with a Sharpie and a smile that warned you not to make her do that again. HR assistant at a city hospital back then, learning the ropes and the acronyms, a woman who could get 10 nurses to sign a form faster than I could balance a load in an ancient car. Cassie has a gift with people, the kind that makes a messed up schedule look like a 50-piece puzzle she can finish while the kettle boils. We build something steady because steady is how I know love is real. She does calendars and I do cables. She knows which debit card earns the better grocery points, and I know how to make a regulator stop screaming at 3 in the morning without waking up the building. The boys came and grew and left, like they're supposed to if you raise them right. Ryan Jr. isn't Ryan Jr., he's Miles, an EMT with calloused hands and a look that still checks me for pain, the way sons do when they learn their fathers are mortal. Austin sells bikes in a shop in Williamsburg that smells like chain lube and espresso and the religion of fixed gears. They're men now. They don't need their mother and me to finish each other's sentences to believe in the world, though I think they liked it when we did. The first signal wasn't a sound, it was a picture. Cassie posted a team lunch flu shot drive wrap-up, a restaurant near Midtown with lighting that makes bad food look like a magazine cover. She's not a lazy poster, she's the caption kind. The woman who writes so proud of this crew and tags people even if it takes her 20 minutes. In the middle of the shot, shoulder tucked in like he belonged there, was a face I didn't know. Youngish, mid-30s maybe, beard trim without a barber, handsome in the way of men who receive compliments like a paycheck. The caption called him our wellness guy, Evan, with a leaf emoji she never uses. You never mention an Evan, I said that night, washing the knife while she dried it with the same dish towel we've owned since 2012. Her laugh was a shrug. Contractor, she said. He runs these webinars about burnout and gratitude. Hospital Network bought a package. She stole a carrot from the cutting board and chewed like it was a joke. He's harmless. Harmless is a word with edges. I filed him next to harmless, which is where I keep things I'll need to know later. Then my knee kept me home 3 days more than I wanted, and the house sounded different. Cassie set her phone face down, which she does when she's being present, but she set it face down on top of mine, which she has never done. A small thing. In marriages, tell the truth. Small things are where the avalanche begins. She went to bed early twice in a week and swore the heat was making her tired. In November, she started wearing a perfume I didn't buy and called it a sample, but it lived on her scarf even when she swore she hadn't sprayed it in days. I don't do jealousy. I do numbers. We're on a family plan because New York is expensive and not being stupid is the only way you survive. The carrier app isn't romantic, but it will tell you who calls whom and when because the people who run the world know billing better than anyone. I wasn't snooping, I was looking at the thing we pay for. A number started to show up between 11 and 1 a.m., a cluster that grew in little constellations. Same area code as Midtown, not one of the usual suspects, her sister, her friend Rochelle, the veterinary office, the pharmacy. I tapped the number into my head, didn't Google it, and waited to see if the pattern held. It did. It's easy to explode when you feel stupid. I did the harder thing, I made a folder. The knee got me light duty for a week, which for Local 1 means doing inspections that don't take a pretzel to get through a hoistway. I took the time I wasn't supposed to have and starting mapping quiet. Cassie sends herself Uber receipts to a shared Gmail because she itemizes for the FSA. She's the kind of organized that pays you in April. I opened the account, which we both use for nothing private, and searched Uber your Tuesday trip because the subject line always says the same thing. There they were, ride after shift, always from the same hospital campus to the same intersection in Midtown, a block from a boutique hotel that thinks a neon tube makes a lobby. When you do my job right, you get in the habit of narrating the boring. I printed a calendar, old school, a grid on the good laser printer at the shop because the ink at home always runs out on the wrong page. I wrote her shifts in blue, the Ubers in pencil with times, then drew lines to the phone log entries. On the second Tuesday, the Uber timestamp and the first call to unknown started 6 minutes apart and stretched 48 minutes. On the Friday, they made a sandwich out of an hour she told me was a decompression walk. I sat with the calendar until the anger cooled into something like gravity. Then I added the detail that made the grid sing, a text Cassie had asked me to help her recover back in August when her iPad wouldn't sync. Her Apple ID lives on the living room iPad for no reason more sinister than habit. I'm the house IT guy. I don't read what isn't my business. But the machine had thrown everything into a stack of untitled threads, and to find the pharmacy reminder she wanted, I had to scroll. A name popped up, Evan Wellness. Not a phone, a name. An emoji I suppose I'm supposed to call a fire. It looked like someone had named a contact. She had, he had, they had. The conversation wasn't explicit, but it was intimate in the way people are intimate when they practice intimacy with 100 clients a month. Proud of you for claiming a boundary, he wrote the night she told me she'd skip dinner with my sister because she needed a night. You deserve joy, he added later, which is a sentence that works like a crowbar in the right hands. I took 3 screenshots, my name and the timestamp visible, because if there is one thing I've learned watching lawsuits unfold around men who think nobody is keeping the paperwork, it's that a screenshot without context is a rumor, and a screenshot with context is a document. Everybody thinks the movie version begins with a confrontation. I pictured it at the sink, her hand in the towel, the way her face would travel from puzzlement to offense to tears. Then I pictured the rest of my life and did the thing men in my trade do when the counterweight leans weird. I brought in a pro. The lawyer's office smelled like lemon cleaner and an expensive candle pretending to be citrus. 9th Avenue, elevator with an attitude, a waiting room full of absence, the kinds of chairs you buy when you want people to think you think about their comfort, a water dispenser that doesn't spill, a stack of magazines nobody reads anymore. Her name was Anita Reddy, and she smiled with the exact number of teeth you show when you've seen everything and have sympathy left anyway. Her first question wasn't about her retainer. It was, how do you want this to end? Without a public execution, I said. I don't want my sons to learn the word viral because their mother made a mistake and I took it to Times Square. She nodded once. Do you want the marriage, he asked, or do you want yourself? The question landed like a wrench dropped from the roof. Myself, I said, and felt more honest than I have in years. Then here is how we do that, she said. And the rest of the hour was operational. Don't touch her devices. Keep collecting only what's yours to see. Shared bills, shared accounts, open a separate bank account, route your direct deposit, freeze joint cards to your individual limit without leaving her unable to pay for groceries because judges do, in fact, read tone. Document your knee and any other health issues if you think spousal support will come up, which she doubted given our salaries and the boys being grown. Find a lease, sign it quietly, move over time. Cancel nothing needed for the current address until the moment you're gone. On the day, leave a packet, not an opus, on her nightstand, your timeline, your lawyer's card, your signed petition, keys to the place you are vacating, and a note that says respectful, adult, and final. What about telling her to stop? My voice surprised me there, a kid's voice in a man's mouth. What about giving her a chance to pick me? That impulse, Anita said, is about your story. If hers includes a man whose career is keeping her pleased with herself, no speech you give will win against a service she's paying for with attention. You're asking me if closure comes from a conversation. Closure comes from a decision. I left with a manila folder that weighed as much as an engine block in my bag. I walked west until the river gave me a horizon to aim at and let the wind do its work. On the way home, I stopped at a credit union in Astoria where I'd been a member back when saving for the boys' braces felt like planning for Mars. The manager remembered me because I once fixed the door in the vestibule on my lunch break and refused a gift card. New account, new debit card, 2 signatures, and a promise to fund it by Friday. I could have told Cassie that night. The apartment smelled like onions and thyme, a soup that takes patience, not skill. Our version of comfort. She wore the hoodie that's mine by purchase and hers by constant occupation, and she tucked her feet under her on the couch the way she does when she's about to ask for something she already bought. She was beautiful. She is beautiful. This is the part of the story where people want me to say she changed into a stranger overnight, as if that makes my choices easier to applaud. She didn't. Her hair was in the messy bun I have photographed 100 times. She laughed at a dumb line in the show we were not watching. She worried about Austin's rent because Williamsburg thinks rent is an abstract art form. She looked like my life, and in that light, I did the bravest thing I have done in that life. I said nothing. After that, the house stopped being home and started being a staging area. It's amazing what you can pack without a room noticing. 2 tool bags are the best suitcases a man can own. I filled one with photo albums and tax returns because those are the things you either lose or have to replace while swearing at yourself. I wrapped the 3 books I actually reread. One about bridges, one about fathers, one about a boxer who turned poet, and my old Local One t-shirt and slid them behind a roll of moving blankets in the van. I ordered a coffee maker to a locker spot 3 blocks away so it wouldn't hit our building. I bought a set of plates that look like the plates you buy when you're 20, not because I'm sentimental, but because food tastes like repair when you eat it off something that isn't an argument. Cassie started making noise you only hear if you love someone. Are you okay? She asked twice in a week, which is about 6 times her average when she's clocked in at worry. I said knee, and she said, you're limping less, which was true. She baked banana bread for the nurse manager who covered her when she had webinars all day, and she left a second loaf on our counter because she is not, in point of fact, a monster. And I ate it with coffee and let myself be sad for the version of us that deserved a boring future. On a Tuesday, she came home with a calendar I'd never seen before. A paper one, not the app that tells us when to buy cat litter. Each day had a circle with a number. It's a wellness thing, she said too quickly. A habit tracker. Every night she filled a circle with a doodle. Water, walk, grateful. On the days with the late night calls, the doodle was a star. I sat in the kitchen and marveled at human beings' talent for narrating themselves right off a cliff. I met the landlord of the place in Sunnyside on a cold morning that smelled like pretzels and bus exhaust. One bedroom, third floor, a window that pretended to be generous about light, a kitchen the size of a meeting, a bathroom that was clean if you didn't look at the cop too closely. I've lived worse. The super had a face that said he knows when to ignore the city and when to report it. He handed me the keys and said, "Don't paint anything red." I said, "I won't paint at all." I signed the lease with a pen I've owned for 15 years and folded my copy into a folder that didn't have room for superstition. On the 10th, my direct deposit went to the new account, and the old joint checking met me with a smaller number and a feeling like walking into a room that used to have a couch. I didn't shut anything down. The Con Ed bill would still get paid from the joint until it didn't need to be. The Spectrum AutoPay stayed on a card with both our names because she deserves internet that doesn't hold her hostage to my decisions. Anita would be proud. "We don't scorch earth," she said, "we move soil." The first thing I carried across the river wasn't a box. It was a plant Cassie had forgotten to water since September. We aren't plant people, we are people who keep a plant because it makes a corner look less like a corner. I set it on the sill in Sunnyside and opened the window and watched Queens breathe in and out. Then I drove back over the bridge like a man who hasn't done anything bad because he hasn't, and I made dinner and I listened to the woman I had loved for half my life talk about a committee that thinks a basket raffle will fix morale. You expect the fight to announce itself. Ours arrived like paperwork. She asked me on a Thursday whether we were going to Miles's on Saturday for the game. I told her I'd swing by early to help him put up the shelves he's been promising his girlfriend since May, but I might not stay for kickoff. She tilted her head. It's funny how the tiniest movements tell the truth. "Everything okay?" she asked, which if you speak Cassie means, "Are we okay?" I thought about telling her about the packet I'd begun to assemble. I thought about the hotel receipts, the grayscale screenshot of a team's DM that wasn't sexual but was a confession written in work voice. You being seen without auditing yourself is the goal, and I thought about us at 28 sprinting toward the good life we were sure we could deserve if we worked our asses off. "Yeah," I said, "just tired." After the knee, you carry your fatigue differently. That's how I got away with my new quiet. The limp covered it like a blanket thrown over a chair you don't want the cat to ruin. I started going to bed an hour before her. I stopped getting up when she got in late. I made my own coffee and didn't pour her a second cup unless she asked. She started to ask. "You mad at me?" she said once, trying on the tone like a coat she wasn't sure fit. "I'm trying not to be mad at anybody," I said, and I meant it. Mid-December, Queens got a hard rain that made even the most bulletproof roofs sigh. The super in Sunnyside texted that the back stairwell dripped, and I showed up with a rag and a gentle lecture about flashing. It felt good to be useful in a building where nobody knows your marriage. I put together a bed with the care of a man doing penance and ate a bad sandwich out of a good bag while the radiator clicked like a metronome learning a new song. The next morning, Cassie asked if I'd seen the weather report for Christmas Eve. "Flurries," she said, smiling like a kid. I said, "I saw," and the smile did something sharp before it disappeared. I don't want to paint her as a villain. I could choose the details that make her look like a cartoon, and it would help some of you sleep at night believing betrayal wears a mustache and laughs at thunder. But she did what people do when somebody stands in front of them with a mirror and they don't like the jawline. She got cranky about the trivial. She told me the knife belongs in the other drawer. She corrected how I said the name of a nurse she's known for 10 years. She mentioned Evan one more time, like a test balloon. "He says we have to put our oxygen mask on first," she said while she scrolled through an email about a potluck. "He can put his mask on without you," I said, so calmly I surprised myself. The day I printed the petition, I made sure the printer had the good paper. You think paper doesn't matter until you hold your future on the cheap kind. Anita sent over a draft with places to initial that felt like signing for organs. New York has a form letter for ending a thing you meant forever. It doesn't want your poetry, and you owe it none. I wrote my name where my name goes and told the clerk at the UPS store that I didn't need a copy because I have a scanner that works and a conscience that isn't looking for an excuse to lose anything. The packet wasn't a novel. 4 pages. The calendar with the pencil lines, the 3 screenshots with dates, a list of phone calls from the carrier's PDF that nobody reads unless they need to prove they're not crazy. Anita's card, held to the paper with a single piece of blue painter's tape because I refused to give a woman I loved a staple to cut her finger on, and the petition with a sticky flag on the line that says respondent. I slid them into a manila envelope because there are rituals even in atheism, and then I wrote Cassie in block letters because cursive makes everything look more tender than it is. The last week before Christmas in this city feels like standing in a long hallway between 2 parties. Joy leaks under the doors whether you're invited or not. I worked a double the Tuesday before, limped less, called a cab only once when the van was boxed in by a truck that thinks a hydrant is a suggestion. I came home to the smell of cinnamon and the hum of an apartment straining to believe in a holiday. Cassie had wrapped 3 gifts for the boys with the kind of care that turns tape into art, and she had put a 4th aside in a bag that said "for you" in a font that wanted me to feel young. A sweater, probably, because she still knows my size. I stood in the doorway and learned there is a difference between grief and sadness. Grief is active, it has muscle. Sadness is a weather system. It moves through you and it moves on. I took the envelope out of my bag and put it back. Then I put it in again. Men who work around spinning machines learn to respect timing the way you respect a loaded gun. Christmas Eve matters. It's a hinge in the year. You don't slam a door on a hinge, you close it all the way. On the 22nd, Cassie kissed my cheek on the way out the door and smelled like the sample again. Rochelle and I are doing last-minute stocking stuffers, she said. Do you want anything? She meant candy. I wanted a life. Pistachios, I said, which is a good answer because cracking them is something to do with your hands when you're trying not to scream. That afternoon, I used the knee as my excuse to skip a service call and instead went to the locksmith we used in 2009 when the boys locked themselves in their bedroom playing Castle. The guy behind the counter had hair like the top of a broom and the patience of saints. He made me 2 more copies of a key that wasn't yet a goodbye. You moving? He asked, because New Yorkers ask anything if you look like you might want to tell it. Leaning? I said. He shrugged like a man who has cut keys for 1,000 leanings. On the 23rd, I carried 2 more loads over the bridge. The toolbox, even I admit, has too many wrenches and a box labeled kitchen that could have been labeled regrets. In Sunnyside, I set a single plate on the counter and an empty mug beside it and laughed at the theatricality of my own staging. Nobody was going to see this scene except me. That's the point. Back home, Cassie had a candle going that smells like a forest if forest costs $60. She stood at the sink with soap on her wrist and looked like a person who believed in her day. You know what I think? She said, not turning around. I think we should do our presents tonight and do stockings tomorrow. It'll break it up. She breathed like she hoped this suggestion would save something. I told her it sounded good. I meant it. We opened gifts like people who know how to be kind. The sweater was navy. I said thank you and I said it well. I gave her the boots she'd pointed to in a window on Lexington, the one she said were too expensive and then thought about for 2 blocks like maybe she could earn them by being extra nice to the world. She cried a little and said, "You're a good man," which is a hard thing to hear when you're waiting to leave. We went to bed with the city outside humming carols learned in shopping malls. She fell asleep too fast, the way people do when they've spent all day pretending their body isn't tired. I lay awake and listened to the radiator knock and counted backwards from 100 like the internet says will help when sleep thinks it knows you. At 3, I got up and walked to the kitchen and made a list because lists make things less likely to eat you. New lease check, separate bank check, package check, keys check, boys call after. I poured water into the kettle and watched it think about boiling. I put my palm on the envelope like a priest with a book and practiced the minute that will change the map of a life. Then I slid it under the sweater in my drawer so the morning wouldn't get ideas about bravery before coffee. Snow, the weather guy said at 6, his smile almost apologizing for the flurries not arriving with a movie's timing. Cassie stirred and asked without opening her eyes whether I could pick up cranberry sauce if I went out, the jellied kind in the can because Miles says it tastes like childhood. I said I would and meant it. I kissed her forehead. She smiled the small smile she has when sleep still has her ankles. Then I made coffee. And while it dripped like it always has, I stood in the doorway and committed a crime I'll carry for the rest of my life. I looked at the woman I loved and let her not know that by dusk, our house would be a different kind of quiet. I timed it between the coffee and the cranberry sauce. You can butter a life with rituals so well that when you finally cut it, the slice looks clean. Cassie stirred again, and the smell of the expensive forest curled across the room like something pretending to be evergreen. I set a mug on her nightstand like any other morning of any other year and tucked the envelope next to it, under the corner of the lamp where the shade meets the base. If she reached for the light, she would see it. If she rolled over and grabbed her phone, she would see it. I had rehearsed the geometry of her hands for weeks, keys on top. Not tossed, not flung nested, as if they had decided to rest. I didn't stand there to watch her wake. I went to the hallway, put on my boots, sat on the bench that wobbles when you tie a knot too hard. The knee complained, a low throb that had learned to talk. I lay slow. Jacket, hat, the plant in the corner looked less thirsty than it had last week. I considered leaving a sticky note that said water me, and then I remembered the envelope already said everything. The door clicked the way our door clicks, twice if you're careful, once if you're angry. I made it do the careful one, then pulled it shut and listened like a man who knows buildings. In the silence afterward, you hear what you'll remember later, the hum of the fridge, the radiators, the city doing city. Queens was gray in that generous, forgiving way of a sky about to try snow. People had their heads down. An older woman with a rolling cart smiled at me because New York makes strangers conspirators on holidays. I nodded back because we do not have to be alone when we are alone. Sunnyside felt like a place where a man could soften without falling apart. I unlocked the door, set my bag down on the new old floor, and exhaled the breath that had been holding its breath. The bed looked like it had been waiting for a human. The mug I left as a joke the day before suddenly looked like a promise. I put water on in a pot so dented it could write a memoir, and while it heated, I texted both boys. "Morning, you two. I'm around after 10. Need to talk by noon. All good, just important. Love you." Miles texted back with an EMT speed. "You okay? 10:30 at my place? Good. Bring coffee. Austin, you too?" The ellipsis bubbles made time into a room. "On my way," Austin wrote, which could mean on his way to Brooklyn, on his way to a thought, on his way to becoming the man whose grin has rescued me from my worst ideas. I wash my face in a little bathroom that has a mirror honest enough to be a friend. A face at 45 is a ledger. My ledger said I had worked with my hands, loved a woman, raised 2 boys, and tried to leave without knocking anything over. I dried off, and because men perform competence at ourselves when we can't fix anything else, I tightened the loose screw in the cabinet and rearranged the 2 towels so they looked like I was the kind of person who thinks about towels. The phone rang. Private number. I knew the voice before the second syllable. Where are you? There are a dozen correct answers to that question if you're playing games. I didn't have to. Sunnyside, I said. I signed a lease. A breath, not a gasp, because Cassie doesn't gasp. A recalibration. You left an envelope. Yes. I haven't opened it. That's okay. Silence came into the room like a witness. A radiator hissed like it had a secret. I let her be the first to move. Is this how you want to do it? On Christmas Eve? I looked at the clock, 10 to 9, the city doing its morning chores. I want to do it without a scene, I said, which means a day when we have plans that aren't about yelling helps. There's nothing to yell about, she said, and she believed that. This is a misunderstanding. You were distant, Ryan. You've been pulling away, and Cass, I said gently, because using the nickname is a kind of hug when you can't give one. Open the envelope. Her breath changed. If you love someone long enough, you hear the weather inside them. I don't like ultimatums. It isn't one, I said. It's a map. You're being cold. I'm being careful. You could have talked to me. I did, in 100 small ways. You didn't want to talk. You wanted a stage. I don't do stages. Another silence. She's good at those. She hired nurses who can keep a face when a doctor says a word nobody deserves to learn. When she spoke again, it was smaller. Is this Evan's fault to you? Because it isn't. I don't need a villain, I said. I need a life. Are you leaving me for someone? No. A softer silence. Are you leaving me for yourself, she asked, like Anita had. Cassie has always been smart about the root of things. Yes. She made a sound like a nod. A small shift, a tiny capitulation. Are you telling the boys? I'm meeting them at Miles's at 10:30, I said. I'll tell them we're separating. I'll tell them it's peaceful. I won't tell them anything they don't need. You're making me the bad guy, she said, almost embarrassed by the way the sentence whined. I'm making me the guy who leaves when staying means lying. The line grew fragile but didn't break. I don't know what to say, she whispered. You don't have to say anything today. I looked at the stovetop. The water had found its boil. Open the envelope when you can. There's a number in there for a lawyer named Anita if you want someone who won't make you feel stupid. There are keys. You don't need to rush to do anything. The rent's paid through the month. The bills will keep auto-paying until we change them. I didn't take your internet. You always take care of the stupid things, she said, a half laugh in her throat. It broke me for a second in the center of my chest where history lives. Stupid things are what make the world usable, I said. We built a good one. It lasted. I loved you, she said, past tense and present in the same syllables. I loved you, I said, and before either of us could weaponize it, we let the call end. I made coffee. I sat on the new old floor and drank it because I hadn't put together a table yet. I listened to a neighbor argue cheerfully with a child about a hat. I breathed. 10 seemed like a number a person could survive. The drive to Brooklyn cut through a city trying to play winter. Slush flirted with the curb. People practiced generosity in line at the bagel place. I parked 3 blocks from Miles's because the universe likes a father to arrive a little winded. He opened his door like a man who's seen 3 shifts in a row. Under-eye shadows, clean apartment, a smell of toast. Dad, he said, wrapping me in arms that could pull a stranger out of a wreck if they had to. He held on a second longer than usual. You look good. I look like a man who bought a plant, I said. He laughed, because he's my son. Austin came in behind me, helmet in hand, hair damp from a shower or the weather. Hey, old man, he said, and the grin that has saved me 3 times this year did its work again. He set 2 coffees on the counter like he was staging them for a photo. You said important. Are we doing okay? Important, or tell us when to sit important? Sit, I said. They did. The table knows 4 chairs but held 3 and the ghost of every breakfast I ever burned. I looked at their faces. I tried to decide whether there is a soft way to hand your children a map that shows a canyon where they thought a bridge was. There isn't. I signed a lease in Sunnyside, I said. I moved some things. Your mother and I are separating. Miles took it like a blunt object with edges he recognized. Austin took it like a sudden cold wind. Is she okay? Miles asked first because he triages feelings like a medic. She will be, I said. I left her an envelope. It explains. It's respectful. I'm not burning anything down. Austin blinked. He's big, my younger one, but his eyes go wide like when he was 6 and I told him we were taking the F train because I went outside for a while and you could see the river. Did you two? Did something happen? Something happened, I said. I didn't say the name. I didn't say the number of calls or the Uber receipts or the calendar with pencil lines. I saw them receive it anyway. They are adults, but they are also the boys who hid in the closet during hide and seek and shushed each other like conspirators. They know how silence can be kind. Do we need to take sides? Austin said, a little angrily to protect me. No, I said. You need to keep your lives. You need to know we love you. You need to let me be responsible for my choices and let your mother be responsible for hers. Miles rubbed his jaw. He gets quiet when he's holding a question until he can make it not hurt. Are you happy? He asked, baffled by the word like it's a medical term he should know but doesn't use. I'm not lying, I said. There's a kind of relief in that. Austin nodded too fast. So we do what? He said. Do we do holidays twice? Do we, like, logistics? I'll send you both my new address, I said, smiling in a way that asked for mercy. I can host a bad dinner by New Year's if you want. I'll get a second chair. I'm not leaving the city. I'm not leaving you. Miles stood and put his hand on my shoulder because he still thinks he needs to steady me. Maybe he's right. Okay, he said. We've got you. Austin walked to the window and looked out at a street where a dog wore a sweater it hated. Do you want me to go check on Mom, he asked, his voice softer than I deserved. Not today, I said. Give her until tonight. Then send her a dumb meme the way you always do. If she wants to tell you anything, she will. If she doesn't, that's hers. They both nodded, men learning the geometry of two homes. I let them ask what they needed. How long had I known? Long enough to respect it, I said. Was there a chance of fixing it? Not with the way I need to live. Were there money things they needed to worry about? No. Did the cat stay with her? Yes, because the cat tolerates me and worships her. Miles insisted on packing me a bag like a reflex. Bread, a jar of the pickles he makes like a person who needs at least one thing to be exactly the way he wants it. A roll of tape because he grew up watching me measure out tape like time. Austin scribbled a list of thrift stores near Sunnyside on a receipt because he has turned Craigslist into a sport and loves the idea of me finding a chair with a past. I drove back over the bridge feeling like the city had pivoted a degree, not towards sadness or away from it, just toward clarity. Snow started to practice at the edges of things. Fences, the hood of a car that refuses to look like it lives here, the roofline of a deli that will sell you the best sandwich you've had all year if you forgive the lettuce. Queens received me without comment. The plant in my window looked greener like it had finally decided I was someone it could trust. I built the chair Austin had found me on a sidewalk 6 blocks away. It had a wobble that reminded me of the bench back at the old apartment. I liked it for the same reason you keep a scar. You can point to it and say, there. That's where the story changed direction. I ate a sandwich the way you eat when you need the act of eating more than the taste, and then I opened the manila envelope's twin, the set of documents Anita had made me keep for myself, and put them in the drawer where the forks will go once I own forks. Sometime after noon, my phone buzzed. A photo from Cassie. I didn't expect that. It was the envelope, open, the calendar page with the pencil lines, my blue initials where I'd labeled dates, her thumb in the corner, the nail clean, the skin of her hand familiar enough to make my throat ache. We should talk, she wrote. We can, I wrote back, but not about blame. About the house, she wrote. About the Spectrum account. About the car. Yes, I wrote. Tomorrow, not today. She didn't argue, which is its own violence and kindness. Okay, she wrote. Did you tell the boys? Yes. They love you. They will text. Take your time. Okay, she wrote again, then sent a single sentence that reached into the past and pulled out a version of her I will always respect. Thank you for not putting me on a stage. You're welcome, I wrote, and put the phone face down, a habit that now belonged to me without any performance in it. The day folded itself in the evening like it had done it before. I walked the neighborhood with no destination, just a map made of lighted windows. Couples were fighting and forgiving and basting and burning and laughing and lying in 1,000 rooms. The world didn't stop for my small earthquake, which is either cruel or saving, depending on what you need from the world. I needed a city that keeps going so I could keep going in it. Back home, I made pasta, boiled it too long because I forgot to set a timer, then ate it anyway because it tasted like a choice. I turned on the radio to a station that still lets a person call in and dedicate a song to a person who won't hear it. I sat on the floor with my back to the new chair and let a song from 1999 remind me of a time when I thought getting married meant never being lonely again. I wasn't lonely now. I was something else. Unhooked, untethered, not free exactly, but unassigned. Around 6, the snow remembered its job. It came in earnest, small flakes with confidence. I texted Miles to tell him the bridges would be slick and to wear the coat he refuses to wear because he's 27 and impervious. I texted Austin a photo of the chair, the wobble visible if you know how to look. He sent back a thumbs up and the address of a hardware store open until 8 and a link to a video about shims. My sons, one keeps people alive on the worst day of their lives, the other brings dead metal back to motion. Between them, a man can figure out how to be. The phone rang again at 7. Rochelle, whose laugh can power a small town, she skipped hello. She opened it, she said. I'm calling because history is what it is and loyalty is complicated jazz. Hi, Rochelle, I said, already grateful. She's at my place, she said. She's not drunk, she's not lying to herself, she's quiet, which is scarier. I told her I would call you to tell you that I am absorbing the crying part and I am ordering us dumplings and I will not let her text you in the style of a person who forgets grammar. I'm also telling you that I told her the thing I told her 6 months ago, which was stop making a wellness consultant into a priest. Thank you, I said, and I meant it more than I knew how to pack into words. You're a good man, Ryan, she said, and it hurt differently this time. I'm not picking sides. I'm picking the grown-up lane. I told her to call Anita. I told her not to ask you why you didn't set yourself on fire to keep her warm. She doesn't deserve to be a villain, I said. Nobody does, Rochelle said. But we're all capable if we forget to be boring. You were boring in the right ways, baby. Congratulations. We laughed because that's a thing we knew how to do together. Take care of her, I said. I always do, she said, and hung up to go be a person who knows how to make grief eat something. I slept badly and well, alternating like the radiator. The bed didn't yet know the weight of me. My knee needed a pillow. My brain needed a barn to pace in and got a small room, so it improvised. Around 3, the snow made the city bright, the way it does when it reflects the streetlights back up at you like a compliment. I stood at the window and watched the flakes make the fire escape into a staff of music, and for a second I felt that complicated joy, the devout feel in an empty church. Christmas came even if I didn't decorate. I woke to the sound of a neighbor laughing at a dog in boots and to text that said, "Marry from people whose lives are not my marriage." I called my mother and lied in the way adult children lie to protect their mothers from their choices, promising we'd get together next week, dodging the details. I texted Cassie a simple wishing you a calm morning. She sent back you too. Then 3 dots, then thank you for the boots, wear the sweater, the tiny kindnesses found their way through. Anita called at noon because she's a person who has learned to be available when the world is closed. "How did your hinge go?" she asked. "It swung," I said. "Any fires?" "No scenes, she's with her friend, we'll talk bills tomorrow." "Good," she said. "And you?" "I'm in a room I can afford," I said. "There's a plant, the radiator sings," I told my sons. She made an approving sound. "When you write this day down in your head, write it down the way you want to remember it," she said, not as an indictment, as a crossing. After we hung up, I walked. Queens does Christmas with a restraint I respect. Windows glowed. Someone on the 3rd floor played a trumpet like they were apologizing for practicing on a holiday. I bought a coffee from a deli where the man behind the counter wished me happiness without asking for a story. I walked past a playground with swings making arcs in a wind that had teeth. I kept moving because motion makes sense when nothing else does. By evening, the apartment had become slightly less a room and slightly more mine. The chair felt committed. The kitchen admitted it was where meals might happen. I took the sweater Cassie gave me out of the bag, wore it, and did not cry because the body has only so many tears in a day and I had spent mine elsewhere. I set the envelope's brother, the part of me that likes order, on a shelf. I cleaned the one mug because doing dishes after a single-person meal is an intimate little vow. The day after Christmas, we met at the apartment because the old house was still her space, and this one was neutral. She came in wearing the jacket I always teased her about, too thin, too grave, not built for a real East Coast January. She warmed her fingers on a mug of tea and looked around like she was trying to see whether I had already become a person who lived here. "You could hang something there," she said, pointing to a blank piece of wall. "A mirror, maybe." "I will," I said. I didn't say that for the first time in years. I'd choose something because I liked it without running it through the calculus of marriage. She took a breath and reached into her bag. Papers. Anita's name on the top of one. "I called her," she said. "How was she?" "Efficient. Kind." She looked at me like she had run out of set pieces. I was proud of myself for not arguing with the calendar. "Me too," I said. "I'm not going to make Ezra the villain," she said. She flinched at his real name. The fact that Evan had been a rebrand and not a person. "I know what I did. I know when it began. I know why I told myself it wasn't what it was. I also know I haven't been happy. Not because of you. Because of a story I told myself about the kind of woman I have to be to deserve things. It's stupid. It's mine." "I understand," I said. I did. The men I fix elevators for reinvent themselves every decade and call it a promotion. Women are expected to do it without changing clothes. We talked logistics until the city ran out of light. Spectrum, Con Ed, the car, storage, the cat. We divided without haggling because fairness is easier when you pick it, not when a judge tells you what it is. She cried twice, short and honest. I didn't because my tier budget had moved to a different ledger. When she left, she touched the door frame like a person touching wood for luck. "You're not going to tell people?" she asked. "I'll tell the truth if asked," I said. "That we're done and we were good and this is how we're doing it." "Okay," she said, like she had found a version of strength she could sign. Weeks unspooled the way weeks do, stubborn and continuous. Papers got filed, bank accounts got renamed. I learned the best time to use the washer in the basement. The super let me fix a stuck gate because he knows a man like me needs a bolt to turn. Rochelle sent me a photo of Cassie at a pottery class, her hands messy, her face a little surprised by the sensation of making something useless and beautiful. Miles brought me a better frying pan from a paramedic who was moving to Jersey with a woman he said was almost certainly the love of his life, but could also be a phase, and we agreed that both might be true. Austin dragged in a rug that did not match anything and insisted it was perfect because perfection is a generous category if you are 25. One night in February, I was in Midtown on a service call, a hotel. Not the boutique one with the neon, a different one, all chrome and apology. The manager wanted the car on the far bank to stop shuttering on start. I adjusted a thing you would not care about unless your life depends on smoothly moving boxes of people up and down, and then I took the long way back to the van. On the corner, through a window, I saw Ezra. I would have walked on, I promise I would have. But the universe sometimes insists. He stepped onto the sidewalk with a woman I did not know and laughed in the way of men whose job it is to be listened to. He saw me. He didn't know me. That's important. He looked past me at the winter and at his reflection and at a city ready to applaud the confident. He kept walking. I let him because theater is not my trade. At home, I wrote a note I never sent. "Dear Ezra, your name is a door you built to be walked through. Take care of the women who come through it like they're not there to fix you. Signed, a man who knows what a cable will do if you pretend it's something it isn't." Spring came slowly. Knees healed the way marriages end, incrementally, then a jump. I started taking the stairs again because I am ridiculous like that. The plant did not die. I bought a second chair. The wobble in the first one stayed. I liked it. It told the truth. On a day in April, I passed the playground where a father I did not know knelt to tie his shoe and said, "Good job asking for help." I wanted to tap him on the shoulder and tell him that sentence works on 45-year-olds too. I got used to we, meaning me, and a city that had not asked me to impress it. I took jobs that let me watch the skyline at dusk. I learned the names of the deli men. I made a habit of calling my sons to tell them nothing was wrong, just that I'd found a good bagel or a bad TV show or a trick for getting a strip screw to admit defeat. Cassie texted on our anniversary a simple glad we learned what we needed to, and I wrote back same. We became ghosts in the kind way, the kind you nod to when a familiar hallway feels less haunted than remembered. I did not become a better person. I became a person who did not need to lie to live where he lives. There is a difference that sounds small and isn't. On a summer afternoon, I sat in the little room that had become a home and listened to the building breathe. Somebody upstairs was practicing piano with the ferocity of someone who refuses to give up on a left hand. A kid in the courtyard below narrated his scooter like a sportscaster. Queens stretched its wings and shook off the winter and the spring that followed the winter and the mistakes that followed the pretending. I turned off the radio and listened to the signal in the noise. Not every victory is loud. Sometimes the triumph is a door that closes without drama, a lock that turns without sticking, a life that continues in a room you chose. Sometimes the bravest thing is to leave gently and let the world be boring again. If this story pulled at something you've been trying not to look at, tell me what resonated and what didn't in the comments. Would you have confronted or ghosted by design like I did? Tap like if you want more quiet, grown-up endings, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one.